Hi, everybody. I'm going to talk about the Dreamscape project that you're going to be working on next. The screen that you see right now has two examples of Dreamscape projects. They are very colorful, they have a background, they have things going on. They're basically telling a visual story. So what you're going to be doing for this last Photoshop project for this semester, you're going to be making your own Dreamscape, and you're going to be using at least 5 different layers to create your Dreamscape. So in the assignment overview and learning objectives, you are actually going to be making an image that has a landscape or an interior that you might see in a dream. So basically your project can be an impossible image that couldn't really happen in real life or in the real world. It has to be dreamlike. It can be funny, serious, contemplative, strange, whatever you want it to be. It's your choice. Your Dreamscape image in Photoshop can contain your own images. They can also be things that you've located online. So be creative, have fun, really make something interesting, and make sure your work is school appropriate. By the end of this lesson, you're going to understand Photoshop even more. We've gone through lots of practices, but basically this is about using layers and applying your knowledge of using the tools, as well as practicing your composition skills to create an image that looks interesting and has great composition. And also learning how to maybe do image adjustments in Photoshop, use the menus, whatever you need to show your learning. The overview video will be right here in the first part that I'm recording right now. So basically this project is about creativity and imagination. How does that help us create images that express ideas? And how can technology tools be used for visual storytelling? Our next unit and module is going to be video. So this is a great introduction to telling a visual story with imagery, where in the next project we'll be using Premiere to tell a visual story with video. So it's a good idea to think about this before we jump into movie making. So in the directions, there are 2 parts. The first part is planning your project. The second part is constructing and completing your project. So I would like you to read through. There's only 8 directions for the first part. And for the second part, there's a little bit more, but it's taking you through the process, okay? There are some assignment resources. There's Photoshop troubleshooting. There's a table that tells you if you have this problem, here's what you do. This next one is Creative Commons images, higher resolution images, and importing to Photoshop. This is a video I made, and it shows you how to find Creative Commons images that you can mix and reuse without having to use copywritten things. You can use some things. I mean, these aren't going to be published out there or anything, but it would be nice if you used all Creative Commons images for this. Let's see. Or you could use your own images. There are some Dreamscape examples from my other students in other classes from the past. You can take a look at those. And then I have some advanced tutorials on surrealism. These have always been available to anyone in the Photoshop Basics tab in your OneNote. There are, let's see, 5 videos that show you some advanced techniques. Feel free to watch them and try them out. There's some pretty good ones there. So the next part of the resources show you how to set up your file using at least 300 resolution, and it has to be at least 8 by 10. So that's the setup. However, if you open an image in Photoshop and it's larger than that, that's totally fine, no big deal. You can check the image size in Photoshop here by going to Image, Image Size, and then once you get there, this menu box opens and you can actually see the height and width, and then change the resolution to 300. I've actually shown this in class before, but you can look at the visuals here to remind you. Also, know the difference between JPEG images and PSD files. Always edit your Photoshop files as PSDs. PSDs are larger, JPEGs are smaller, usually, but PSD files allow you to keep all your layers. And then what is a JPEG? Well, a JPEG stands for Joint Photographic Group. So basically, using JPEG files for print, it's better for resolution, so that's why I usually change everything to a JPEG before we print stuff. But we're not printing in this class, but it's good to know, like, hey, what is a JPEG and what are we doing with this? But you'll be saving you don't have to save yours as JPEG images. You can just take snips to turn them in, which brings me to the next part, turning in your work. So here you're going to be turning in an image of your final Dreamscape right here. It has to be an image. Please don't insert a file. I don't want to have to click it to open it. And I can't open your Photoshop files, so you need to insert an image. And this is where I give you feedback and comments. And then at the bottom, we're looking at your composition and how you put things together. That's standard 2. It's actually media standard 2. Media or art standards. I should change that. Media art standard 2, and then media art standard 6. Okay, so that's meaning. Number 6 is meaning. You're showing meaning in your work and you're working on putting things together. It's only 2 standards for this one. Okay, I am going to go back up to the top here because I want to talk a little bit more about the directions. When you're planning your project, I want you to do some research online. Go on the internet, research dreamscapes, dream images, or maybe you're interested in magical forest or starry sky, whatever you're interested in for your background, or an interior like a grand museum or something like that, and start collecting things. You can find pieces and parts of images that you want to use. Try to find higher resolution images. The video that I have right here that I clicked on before, this shows you how to find those higher resolution images. I think I'm going to show that in class so everybody has a chance to see it. Okay, let's go back to the directions again. Make sure you're saving your images in a folder on your laptop. I would not save them in OneDrive. You can save them to OneDrive also, but make sure you have a copy locally. It's what we call it when it's on your laptop. You can also use a flash drive. It's up to you, but please save them locally on your C drive or your desktop or whatever works for you so you can find and access them easily, okay? You can use whatever tools you would like in Photoshop to create your Dreamscape. There's no specific tool you have to use. You'd get to decide, which is great. If you need to know some tools and you don't know how to use some of them, inside Photoshop is the best way to learn. But there are also some Photoshop tutorials here we talked about many times, and 2-minute teaching tools that my students in high school made for everyone to take a look at. Those are in your Module 1 resources. You can also paint. If you wish, in Photoshop, use the tools. Collect, assemble, edit pieces and parts, whatever works for you. Make sure you follow the guidelines to set up your image, or your image might be too pixelated. You want to make sure it's not too pixelated. You could incorporate pieces and parts of at least 5 different pictures. So 5 different layers you should have and 5 different pictures. But you can have a lot more. It's totally fine. Your dream image should be a place and not a random, like a whole bunch of stuff just thrown together. You need to have a background that shows a place, interior, exterior, landscape, seascape, anything. So that's part 1 is planning. And then part 2 is decide your background, put that in the first layer, which would be on your bottom layer, make it your background layer, and then start adding your photos. You can copy paste, you can lasso, you can use object select tool, whatever you want to use. You can have multiple files open in Photoshop, copy one, paste it into your background image on top. You're just making layers. You're building up like a sandwich. Those layers are like a sandwich, okay? Make sure you unlock that background layer if you want to alter it, or you can keep it locked. It's up to you. When you're all done working, and as you go, save as you go. But make sure you save your work as like class period, Dreamscape, your name, like, Amy Dreamscape in a PSD file. That's what it's going to be. So the example would be period 5 Dreamscape Jessie.psd. Then keep working, get some feedback if you would like. I've shown you lots of tricks and tips like naming your layers so you know what layer is what. Using the tools, enhance your Dreamscape. You can use filters if you'd like. You can use like the liquify tool to make things like blow up or shrink down. You decide what you want to do. We will have some time in class to get some feedback. There's also a location in the team, one of the team's channels, where you can post your work and get feedback from anybody. So please utilize that. When you're done and you've revised, save it as a PSD file. You do not have to save it as a JPEG. In some of my videos, I ask students to save them as JPEGs. We did that in the past. You can do that if you want. It doesn't matter. You need to take a clean snip with your snip and sketch tool in your computer, or you can use the print screen button on your keyboard. And then you're going to insert that to your turn-in area. You can also insert it as a picture if you've saved it as a JPEG image. That's the benefit. It'll save it as a JPEG image in a folder, and you just go up here and you just go insert pictures, and then that'll insert a JPEG file. So then you turn in your work to the bottom, it's always at the bottom, and then you grade yourself. Make sure you self-assess. And I am excited to see what you're going to make. And as you're working through this, make sure that you utilize peer feedback and help from me. Okay, thanks for watching.